Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Almost.
Almost.
Right?
We're almost there. That was good. You delivered, man. That could have been Jimi Hendrix doing a Happy New Year.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. This is true. And you know what? Do you know the lyrics to that song?
No.
And what the hell does it mean?
I don't know. Auld Lang Syne and something whatever. Forgotten and whatever. Yeah. And people making their little list of whatever they're going to do in the new year, you know. Yeah. That nobody keeps those promises. It's like,
hey man, this is our second year of IoT Coffee Talk. And by the way, everybody, welcome to IoT Coffee Talk, the most irreverent, silly IoT talk show on YouTube.
We are basically the sports center of IoT.
Yes.
Totally irreverent.
Right. Totally irreverent and ridiculous.
Wicked smart. Wicked smart.
Well, you know, there is something to be said about just being honest about stuff.
Yeah.
Saying it like it is, you know.
Right.
You don't have to spin anything. So you end up landing on stuff that resonates and is real. I mean, there's a lot of merit to it, I think. So just sometimes you have to ramble through some challenging topics, and out in the end, on the other end of all that rambling, hopefully there's some insight that you can share with folks, and that's why we do what we do. Right?
Yeah, maybe sometimes in addition to just trying to help companies or people do better, we might every once in a while may rescue them or save them from a horrible mistake that they didn't see coming. You know,
exactly.
But luckily they listened to us and went, oh wow, thank God. You wouldn't believe I was about to deploy this ridiculous thing, and woo, you know, I just tried to purchase 10 million Helium gateways for my corporation, and you know, I noticed they're backordered forever.
Hey, look, you know what's really odd? They don't have a great network business; they have a great hardware business.
Yes, that's right.
That is, so for all the folks that point to how Helium is or they say that Helium is so successful, what counts is the network, not how many gateways you sell.
Right.
That is actually a horrible metric for success for what these guys are trying to do.
And they're obviously playing upon one of the most basic instincts of humanity to be successful. Everybody's going to get paid. I'm going to get some kind of Helium token.
Love.
I don't know what to do with my hands. I feel like Ricky Bobby here. You know, obviously everybody's like, hey, I'm going to get rich off this Helium stuff. I tried the Things network, but they weren't paying me tokens to build gateways. So I'm going to go to Helium. Like that guy we talked to from Houston, right? Remember?
Yeah.
He said he was all in with the Things network for a long time, and he switched to Helium. Obviously, you and I know other people who are all in with Helium too. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out for them.
Oh, they're gonna kick our asses. They are jonesing to rub our noses in it in 12 months, but we'll see where we're at in 12 months. I mean, you know what? Seen this, I've seen this happen, this pattern happen so many times. You know what I'm saying? And you see the red flags. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
After a while, and
totally.
I didn't see enough green flags, but we'll see. I mean, if they make something happen, cool.
Yeah. Now, you know what? I want all our friends to be successful, so I hope it works out for them. Absolutely.
I do, but
absolutely.
This is one of the. But anyway. So what do you think 2022 is going to look like? What did you think about 2021? And
you know what?
State of IoT.
State of IoT. Well, I don't know. From my perspective, obviously 2021, the biggest thing for me was this Thunderstruck project. And so that's what I did all year, and was taking industrial IoT and to a place that it hasn't gone to very much before, going to agriculture. And it was super rewarding. to get your hands dirty and to be out there and do something real. And so it was great. I couldn't have asked, here we are in this horrible pandemic, and I felt so blessed to get to be involved in something real with some great people working with farmers. And in the end, it's getting them data to help them make better decisions, because they need to, they got all these headwinds ahead of them that, are preventing them from doing what they need to do, increase crop yields, better quality crops, save money, make money, the usual IoT stuff. So it was great to kind of do something different. I mean, we are so focused on Industry 4.0 stuff. Yeah. And it's all about smart factory all the time. And it's like, there's lots of other great places that need that same kind of help. And so, it was rewarding, but there's also a lot of good learnings, and I don't want to say cautionary tales, but just so people are prepared. And I know there's already some other players in this kind of ag tech space where they're using IoT, devices and sensors to gather data about what's going on. And that makes perfect sense. One of the things, I know this will seem obvious to the audience, is unlike doing IoT in a warehouse or a factory or a corporate campus or whatever, deploying devices outside in a farm, in orchards, in rows of crops is not trivial. You need to wear your cowboy boots, and and it takes a long time. It's, and so, a lot of people, they kind of gloss over, they think of IoT platforms and data and analytics and all this magic, but none of that happens until you actually go and put devices and associated sensors out there to give you that data, right? Yeah. And it ain't trivial doing that on a farm or a ranch. We're talking acres and acres, hundreds, thousands of acres, square miles, driving around in pickup trucks, going under brush, finding ways to attach these devices onto something. Weather is out there, cold, rain, you have to. And so, it's not that clinical. So many people, especially so many people who aren't really in our business, but they're enthusiasts or whatever you want to call them. And so they just think of Raspberry Pis and Arduinos, and that's fine. But it's a different world. You've got to have weatherproof devices. They have to have batteries that last a long, long time. Those batteries have to be easily replaceable while still being weatherproof. There's so many things can go wrong. And so, and so it's not for the faint of heart to take IoT out into farms and ranches. It's just way harder. It's going to take longer to deploy, way longer to deploy. It's going to take more people that you'll need to go physically place those things. Our good friend, Mr. Brummer, I remember him talking about the need for really a good hardcore IoT system integrator out there. Yeah. And I know all the big consulting firms created IoT practices when IoT got hot.
So it's all about data.
It's all about data. They're not doing the messy, the ugly, hard stuff. The world needs the world needs an SI that is going to do all that stuff. Also, remember all these IoT practices, and they're like, oh, Industry 4.0, we are all in. And so where do we go? What do we do? Do I just need to be in that cubicle over there? Oh, I need you to go into a factory where we manufacture automobiles or aircraft engines. And they're like, I don't even know what that is. What? And they've never seen a factory in their life. And so, but they're like, but I was programming Visual Basic last week in someone's cubicle. Isn't that the same? Yeah. And so just like we had consulting firms, the big ones, along with lots of boutique firms and others, try to venture into this industrial IoT, especially when everybody realized that's where the money was. And, that was new for them. And agriculture and farms and ranches will also be new for them in a much bigger way. Yeah. Lots of ground to cover, no pun intended. And so your deployment times are going to take a long, long time. And so when you're working with a customer, the farmer, whoever owns the place, when you're telling them what the schedule is for deploying and getting that data, be careful with what you tell them, because it's not something that happens overnight. It's going to take a long time. Can you imagine if you're just doing a farm that's 10,000 acres and you're only going to put one device and associated sensors per acre? How long do you think it takes humans to deploy 10,000 devices?
Oh my God. Well, you know what? I was just thinking, you brought up the big consulting firms. I mean, can you imagine? So you're a new grad. You came from one of the top, business schools, and your partner tells you, and you've joined the IoT practice, and your partner tells you, oh, by the way, we're going to go and deploy IoT solution for a farm. You're going to have to go and jump in a truck, put on boots, and oh, by the way, watch out for the cow pies.
Yeah.
What's that consultant going to say? It's like, I didn't go to Harvard to go out into a field and, accidentally stomp on a big pile of cow shit.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
I mean, everything at the edge, quote unquote edge, is dirty. I mean, it's real. It's not corporate data. It's not or aggregated stuff that's about to go into the general ledger. Or get tossed into the sub ledger.
For these farmers, these growers, it would almost be insulting to say that to them, because they're like, our business is just as important as anybody else's business. Right. Ours looks a lot different than a clean, sterile being in a skyscraper in a big city.
Exactly. But
they need to make money. They've got accounting. They've got all the same functions that a normal non-farm business has. And so, it's to your point though, when I'm spending time with these growers, we absolutely had just tons of great open discussions about the very problem of where are we going to get the people trained?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The IoT people, it might have to be a different way of looking at this stuff. We started talking to junior colleges and more agriculture focused colleges, a lot of land grant universities. Every state usually has at least one of those, an A&M type school. For us in Washington State, it's Washington State University in Pullman. We worked with professors at UC Merced in California. They're right there in the heart of the valley there. Purdue is a giant agriculture powerhouse, Texas A&M, stuff like that. I think that we're going to have a different breed of IoT people come through programs that way, and not like I went to Harvard and I'm wearing a 3-piece suit, and they're going to be taught about all of it, how to build devices, sensors, batteries, how to set up wireless networks, how to deal with adversity.
Yeah, and you're bringing up a good point, because I think it's important for that new breed of IoT folks that are not just developers, that are not, quite honestly, technical, that can drive the solution designs. Do you know what I'm saying? That are willing to get into the trenches in these industries and be able to kind of work through. I mean, you know what I'm saying? They're not technical, meaning they're not developers. They're not, but they know what kind of capabilities can be built on top of the technology, right? And are willing to go down and to a farm or a field and actually work on designing the business solution, right? Which is oftentimes something a developer is really not all that great at,
Right.
And that's why you have business analysts.
Yeah.
It's not like business analysts went away because developers got really good at that stuff. No, developers tend to bone up on the latest technologies and advances and progressions in the languages that they're working with, and they're not into analyzing business requirements or going out and figuring out what requirements are. much less solutioning,
I'd love to drive curriculum for maybe an associate's degree in community college. Just like we had discussions ad nauseum about not everybody has to go to college. Yeah. We need electricians, we need plumbers, we need welders, we need all kinds of people, HVAC people. There are so many jobs to be done in this world that are super important, and you can make a good living. And I would say that I would want to add what we're talking about right now to that kind of that category, because I think we ain't going backward on digital transformation. It's only going ahead, and the connected world is and so it's a new field, and it's not just for super brilliant techies who live in some castle somewhere. We need to, I would love to, and I had these kind of discussions with a lot of the growers over the summertime in Eastern Washington. It's like, how can we put together some programs in the community colleges where kids could come out with an AA in IoT, whatever that means. Yeah. And they know about devices, they know about batteries, they know about deploying, they know about wireless networks, setting all that stuff, because it's all important. And guess what? It requires a lot of people, and we don't have a big enough workforce to do that. We have a lot of people who think it's just writing code and doing platform stuff.
And those are more. Yeah, and the platforms are not the solution. That's what. And for some reason, and if it's not the solution, that's not where most of the value lies, right? Platforms and tools are just, they're just there. They're things that you use to build a solution, but there's a huge gap between. There's a big chasm that has to be crossed between all the tools and the technology, and then that solution that actually delivers value to anyone, right? The tools and platforms by themselves, they don't do anything. And to provide such huge valuation for those things it is, number one, a little bit silly. And number two, it's not the game that you have to play in IoT. It really is. It's the solutions, the ability to deliver solutions, and it doesn't necessarily have to be scalable. Because one of the conversations that I've wanted to get into with Rick, because a while back we had this conversation about scaling IoT. Some IoT stuff is just not scalable. And so to go and invest so much energy in trying to make it scalable doesn't make any sense. The thing is the economics will continue to come down, right? That's simply because Moore's Law and Moore's Law Plus or whatever. Things will be easier and cheaper to instrument, and IoT will be applicable in more constrained and remote environments over time. Okay, that'll just happen. But this whole idea that you have to scale everything, I think is misguided. I think some of the most value that you'll get out of IT is through very bespoke, specific app implementations, because each environment is different, whether it's a smart factory or a field, right? I mean, how many ag fields are exactly the same? Right. Microclimates are totally different, right?
Yeah. And you're right. When people talk about scaling in IoT, they're like, is your platform scalable? Can you handle 10 million messages per second? Can you cover the planet? And it's like, well, yeah, the hyperscalers have built those, and some of the others will do that. Friends of mine have built great platforms. But what have we learned? It still needs those boots on the ground to deploy devices and do all the dirty work, because until you do that, none of the love happens upstream in data land or analytics or outcomes land. Yeah. And so I think I'm glad we are talking about this. And I think a lot of people could do a good job in contributing. I've seen different IoT curriculum, or how a lot of MIT and all these other schools say, come take our 6-week course and get your certificate and be a master of IoT for only $9,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, you obviously haven't talked to me.
That's I know. That sounds like a great business. That's almost like garbage trucks on YouTube.
It is like garbage trucks on YouTube.
It's like you just come up with
content. So I would say, we need a different curriculum for stuff like this, right? And this is baby steps. This is Raspberry Pi. This is also not real world, but it's all kinds of sensors hanging off a device because you need compute, storage, networking. Oh, look, there's a moisture sensor. People need to learn how to do this stuff at scale and deploy and fast, and then maintenance, like anything else in life, like your tractors or your car at home. Everything needs maintenance. Anything with a moving part is going to fail. That's why we're doing industrial IoT. We're trying to predict that stuff. And so anyway, lots of things to learn out there in the real world, isn't there?
Yeah. And you know what? I think one of the most interesting things that came out of one of the episodes this year was that whole overall plumber thing that you and I talked about. I mean, you mentioned plumbers, right? I mean,
yeah.
Literally, they may be the ultimate IoT sales channel.
There you go.
and I'm,
I mean, because all the time I'm saying a lot of the IoT stuff is just plumbing. And then the real value, as you know, it's always the outcome part, the data, the analytics, digital twins. That's where people are assigning value. But it's funny. I was talking to a good friend of mine who was a CTO at Microsoft last night, and we were talking about Thunderstruck, and I was just like, in the end, I just built plumbing, and I routed data and sent it to places, whatever. It was no big deal, and I was belittling what I had created this year, and he was like, "But did it work?" And I go, well, yeah, it worked like a champ. We had devices all over the fields, and we routed data to Snowflake and Tableau and everything. He goes, dude, you shouldn't beat up on yourself for building something that actually works. You'd be surprised how little of this shit out there actually works. Because I try to not overstate sometimes what I'm doing. I know there's really, really hard stuff in the data world to really get those incredible insights. But at the same time, you gotta have all that plumbing, all those data pathways, getting somewhere, routing it to some place. So you can analyze it and doing automation. A lot of people are saying, oh, I need the insight, and then I'm going to come up with some magic thing. A lot of folks, what they really want is for you to provide automation automatically. And so what they really want is, I don't want the insight that block 32 of my farm is a little dry and I need to go water it sometimes. What I want is you to tie into the irrigation system and fully automate turning it on and off the valves for me. That's what I really want. Yeah. I mean, isn't that what IoT is? It's supposed to be all this future stuff, right? Where everything's just handled for you.
Yeah.
And we're not there. We're still telling people you're going to get this insight, and your legion of data scientists that are working for you are going to come up with some cool stuff. That's not what people are asking for.
Yeah. I mean, and one of the things that I think you bring up quite a bit, which is important, is just keeping it simple. Even if your client or your customer wants automation, that's like way further down in the maturity curve of IoT, right? And I think we do have a tendency to kind of cut off IoT at, let's say, all the sensors and the instrumentation and then gathering the data. But maybe one of the things that has to happen is the evolution of this idea of IoT to include that whole closed loop that you're talking about, right? Because only then do you get automation. And so the question out there is, do we bundle, and this is kind of like the crux of that piece that I wrote a long time ago called "If You Want to Talk About IoT, Stop Talking About IoT," is do you loop in like robotic process automation, because that really what it is. It's either cyber physical or it's cyber physical, some sort of automation. But do you call that IoT plus RPA, or is it just another thing that gets loaded into IoT? You know what I'm saying?
It's a fair question. Absolutely.
But it's semantic.
Automation is the magic. It's it is. Because we've used the similar examples over the years. I remember the first time I started speaking to people when I was at Microsoft about IoT and everything, and I would give an example. It would always be, well, I have this electric motor and it's running and it's sending me data. It's saying I'm running at 10,000 RPM and my current temperature is 100 degrees, let's say.
Yeah.
And then my analytics, not rocket science analytics, thresholding, which factories have been doing for a million years anyway. Yeah. They're just saying, oh, if it goes higher than, let's say 200 degrees, you probably have a problem. I've got an insight. And to your point about the closed loop thing, it's going to prescriptive analytics. It's going to say, when this happens, what it means is obviously the motor's running too hot. It's going to burn out. And prescriptive analytics is always about, well, what should I do? What do I do when I find this out?
Yeah.
Oh, what I do is I need to chill out that motor and have it maybe go down to 7,500 RPM. So your closed loop system should be able to see that list. I wrote a bunch of articles recently on just different aspects of digital twins, and where you can have that list of prescriptive analytics things, because it could be a list of things. It may not just be one thing. And so in this case, send a command back to that motor telling it, slow down to 7,500 RPM. Keep testing the temperature and see if the temperature goes down back to 100, that kind of thing. The farm moisture sensors are telling me that based on soil type and crop type, it's getting too low. Send a message to the irrigation system that I've integrated with, which is a whole other project. That's an SI project, right? Because you've got your IoT system, but you can't always control the whole end to end. You want to, but there's a separate irrigation system. And so you probably need people who know how to do that to interface with an irrigation system to automate turning on and off the water valves, whatever, to get that going. And in the end, we can come up with a million examples, but that's what customers want.
Yeah.
They don't want to worry about that stuff.
Yeah.
Know?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's true. It's not just about the basics is providing visibility to whatever it is that you want visibility to, and then providing data. That's like basic, and maybe the next step is getting some analytics around that, so you develop a sense of, you get some insights from what's happening. When you start talking about closed loop automation, all that stuff for these large systems, that's a different game,
Right.
But
absolutely. The other thing I learned spending time with growers is that, I may have mentioned it before on an earlier episode, in addition to those things they want automatically happening and don't want to worry about, they don't want to worry about devices or deployment or maintenance or batteries or failed devices because it snowed or it was a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
They want all of that handled for them 100%.
Yeah.
And they also may not want to take on the capital expense up front. Back to the reference, like a 10,000 acre farm. Yeah. If you tell them, I need you to buy 10,000 devices, and the devices are whatever, $100 each, $200 each, they may have sticker shock when they see that and might go, whoa.
Yeah.
And so part of that might be, I need you to wrap that cost in a subscription. Yeah. And maybe I will commit to a minimum of 48 months or whatever it is, just like any payment plan, right?
Yeah.
Because I need the cost of those devices to make sense for me economically. And so beating down the cost of that also wireless connectivity. You got to figure that part out too. That's because that's part of the package. That's part of the plumbing, right? And so they don't want to deal with that. They're like, I'm not going to set up on my own LoRaWAN network, or I'm not calling up Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile.
Yeah.
I want you to handle it. And whatever the cost is, that's not some separate thing that I got you. It also has to be bundled in with the devices. Oh, and ongoing maintenance. When something goes wrong, you are dispatching one of your folks out there to fix it or change a battery or whatever.
Man, you know, I just get the impression that we need to approach IoT in a very different way than what we have assumed. You know, the more that I was listening to you on that little bit, this whole idea of subscription based doesn't work for us as much as we think. It's something that we hear all the time is like, you have to do everything as a service. Well, I think there needs to be pushback. There are other types of models that we can use to help farmers finance, capitalize the stuff, and you know, and do it in a way that can still be simple, but provide an equitable mode of commercializing these solutions for these different, these different markets, whether it's for the ag market or industrial, you know. The as and this is where I think we fall into the trap of saying that where service providers say we need to scale IoT because they're too afraid to sell it the other way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because this whole, because you know, think about it. The reason why you say the only people who care about whether or not your platform can handle a gazillion transactions per second or minute or whatever is a service provider. Your individual customer doesn't give a crap. They might only need a small fraction of that. That's all that's relevant for them.
Yeah.
So this whole topic of scalability is more from a service provider business model or platform capabilities perspective, not from the standpoint of the end user. And so the reason why that's important is the scalability is important for the service provider or the IoT platform guy, is that's how they bring the price down because they're too afraid of asking for value, pricing things at the value that it probably should be priced at.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you could sit there and approach the farmer and tell him, look, these are the types of arrangements that are not, you know, subscription based, but you know, would be viable for all of us. You know, first off, it wouldn't be a subscription based thing. And you would work through some of the details with them, like all the challenges that you've you know, faced with some of the clients that you were working with. You would be dealing that in a more substantial way, having a value conversation, right? Instead of just sitting there and resorting to, oh, well, we're going to do everything as a service. I think that's where the IoT folks run into trouble and why it's been such a struggle.
Yeah,
I'll just put it out there, but I mean,
give them options. You know, it's like I overuse the ADT security business model or Vivint or any of the other ones. Give them an option. If the customer would like to incur the capital expense on 10,000 devices, they can, and you should have a model for that. If they don't, but you still want to do the deal, AKA that's how Hitachi sold trains to the UK, because we were able to do trains as a service to make it affordable.
Yeah.
If they, you know, and so as your business modeling for IoT, you need to think about all those possible pathways. Eventually, you know, it's a decision tree that a customer is going through. They may want the whole thing as a service. They may want none of it as a service. They may want mix and match. Who knows? You need to be ready in advance of your meeting with a customer so that you aren't fumbling around going, oh, God, I don't know what you're talking about. Or
Right.
I only think this way,
But I'm under the impression, or at least I'm getting a feeling that if you as an IoT entity resort to the as a service thing first, you haven't really invested time in having the value conversation of what your solution actually could do. Do you know what I'm saying? You're just going straight to commoditization, because that's what you try to do with software as a service. And for anyone who knows the genesis of this stuff, you understand it was all about commoditizing hardware to delivery of software, right?
Yeah.
Enterprise software. And so what I think the IoT community has to get much better at is having that value conversation, not being afraid of asking for money, but being able to have that value conversation in a way that gets them compensated, basically, and providing them with a viable business that delivers value to their customers.
Yeah.
But if you just go straight to SaaS, it's like, or whatever, as a service or a subscription, you're just basically going down commodity.
You just never know. I definitely want to be open to other things. I'm not going to bash SaaS and subscription because it has its place.
Yeah. No. But you know what I'm saying? It's just, I'm throwing that out there because I'm in a way challenging some of these prevailing notions that we have. I mean, because when we talk to all our IoT buddies, everyone talks about, hey, we provide it as a service. We provide it as a service, but then how many of them are like killing it? A lot of them are still just doing POCs, and you have a bunch of client, prospects that are just going off of the the freemium thing, just tinkering around to see whether or not this thing's in a state where they would actually want to implement it, right?
Yeah, right.
So, what's the big gap?
Sometimes customers don't like the idea of being beholden to another company or entity completely for the success or failure or operation of the whole thing. You know what I mean? If the whole deal is some SaaS offering in somebody's cloud or whatever, and the pitch has always been the same from hyperscalers or SaaS, anything. It's like, instead of you buying the product, instead of paying for this product and all this stuff, why don't you just pay for the benefit? And that's the pitch. Yeah. We're going to handle all that messy stuff for you, and you're just going to get the benefit. And it's an attractive pitch.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's real. But there are customers who are like, my success or failure is totally hinged on you now.
Yeah.
And there's some of them who are like, I think I want to own the whole thing and have the success or failure on me. Yes, it requires me to do more. Yeah. But yeah, it's like building Thunderstruck. I made sure it was the platform software part of it was super lightweight. It could run on a little edge node Intel NUC if you wanted it to. And if someone wants to run that on their farm at their production without going to the cloud, sure, no problem.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The way I look at it, dude, what you're doing is you're building an accelerator for implementation. And most of the time and the cost that you incurred was actually rolling around in trucks, stepping on cow shit in the middle of a friggin', field, maybe dog shit. And
it just depends.
And dropping sensors, connecting them, putting and doing all the stuff that you did. I mean, that's where your cost was, and that's also where the value was. It's not in simplifying the software, all the stuff, totally essential. But I think you're reinforcing some of my hypothesis or thinking here. and that when you go and you sell that, you can't just sell the software and commoditize, because there's just going to be no money in it. You have to be able to sit there and take the solution and price the solution, and that includes, you know, going out in the field, rolling around and rolling out in a truck and wearing boots and stepping on doo-doo to put up a sensor, right? That's just the way we do on IoT Coffee Talk.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Going out in the field and stepping on doo-doo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about what's another service that everybody has. They don't even think about it. Somebody comes and picks up your trash once a week.
Yeah.
And that entity may be contracted with by the city you live in or whatever. But how does it work? Do you have to care about anything? They give you the trash cans, the bins for regular trash and recycling.
Yeah.
And they say, we're going to show up and come get it once a week on this day.
Yeah.
I know this is a really stupid, simple example, but it should be that simple. And it's like, I don't have to do anything. They gave me everything I need, and I'm just going to put my trash and make sure it's out there in the morning before they pick it up. That's how a lot of folks might want this to work, right? And so, but no doubt, right. There's a spectrum. There's a spectrum for sure.
Right. But hey, Rob, I mean, let's think about this for a moment. Is that how people should be thinking about it?
I don't know. I think everybody's different. And that's why
they are.
But you as a vendor should be prepared for differences from different wants for, you know, business models for the user, you know?
Right. But, you know, sometimes the expectations that have been set by the buyer dictate whether or not you even have a market. And so I'm just wondering whether or not, as these enterprises and these business folks read all this, you know, stuff on IoT, and everyone's saying, well, if it, you know, you should consume it as a service, blah, 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 and it's all commodity, blah, 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 then, I mean, that's what you have to face. And unless you do this, unless you offer it like that, they're not going to buy. They're just going to force you to, as a IoT solution provider, or service provider, or whatever gadget provider, to meet those expectations, and maybe everyone's being completely unreasonable. No, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to solve the problem, and also point a finger at people out there who may be setting the wrong expectations and not making anything happen. Maybe this isn't supposed to be anything like the trash thing you're talking about. That people should realize, look, here's real value that can be extracted. We can do some crazy crap for you, and you're going to have to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let people who do this wonderful stuff for you feed their kids. Do you know what I'm saying? Nothing good comes for free. You know, I'm just putting it out there because, you know, we hear everyone whining about why there's no money in this game.
Well, it was like, why was there no money for the longest time on the internet? Everybody had these models where they gave everything for free, remember? And they pitched the VCs. But then they say, in year 3, when our hockey stick goes up, that's when we're going to make everyone start to pay for our service. Yeah. And they're like, perfect, here's your $20 million. And what happened at year 3 when they said, all right, now you got to pay? Everybody left.
No.
Bye-bye.
Actually, okay. And then the smart ones figured, okay, oh, wow, we have everyone's private data. Why don't we just sell it off?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
and then, you know, implement an ad engine and basically make this all ad driven.
Absolutely. And that was the revelation, because you're right. The early days of the internet, unless you were doing e-commerce transactional stuff, it was news. It was all this content, free, freemium. And then we'll have the premium deal, and maybe less than 1% of your users would actually pay. But you're right. Advertising, a lot of people went that way. And then, of course, you had the rise of social media, where you are the product. And we are mining the data, and we know every last thing about you.
Yeah. So let's figure out, let's see how the ad model would work in IoT. I guess it could. You could.
We should probably drill into that.
Advertising on an instrumented cow.
We should probably drill into that. We should have an episode where we look at bizarre new business models, because you know what? People want to get the stuff and they want it to be cheap, right? And it's like, let's be creative and see if we can find new ways to help them do that.
Seriously. As ridiculous as this conversation sounds, there's actually something that should be a question that should be addressed. And
like you and I discovered many years ago when the two of us were in Barcelona for the IoT World Congress thing, and we went and chatted with the guys from Relayer, and we found out that their business model was, well, gosh, we talked to the insurance company, and they said the biggest expense, the claim to pay, was a flood at the house. And they looked at their actuarial tables, and they determined it makes sense for them to pay for the IoT leak detection on behalf of the customer. And then you, as the IoT company, went, yes, that's awesome. And the customer went, yes, because I sold my IoT stuff. The customer didn't have to pay a dime. The insurance company paid for it because it made financial sense. We got to think outside the box and find ways, economically viable ways, to get this technology into the hands of customers. Whatever it is. And so, like when I was doing IoT in the 90s with vending machines, initially it was just about optimizing route driving. Some guy in a pickup truck has a territory, and they have to service all their vending machines and restock it, the drinks, candy, whatever. And all we wanted to do was say, well, now you're going to know in real time the inventory. And so you may not have to go everywhere, and you'll know exactly what to bring. But what we didn't count on was we started to get real-time data on people's buying preferences, which is kind of like I don't think we realized at the time that we're like, oh, wow, it's like Facebook. We're profiling these people. But we stumbled upon it. And all of a sudden we said, oh, these vending machines here by this law firm, they really love those white powdered donuts, and it's selling out like crazy. What if we use that real-time information and added another row of white powdered donuts? And now the machine is making more money because we profiled the customer. That there's some magic there. And then what happened after that? The makers of some of the brands of the products that are in the machines said, well, I think we want that data too. We'd like to know the buying preferences of all these people, because before all this, people on vending machines just not mindlessly, they did their best guess on what was selling well nationally, but they would stock it with the stuff that they thought was right, but they didn't really know for sure. And so anyway, it's just yet another example of there may be another entity in play that will pay for the data that is coming from there, and you might help at least offset some of the cost.
There you go. And you know what? The thing is developers, that's not what they do. But a lot of our IoT friends, they focus so much on developers
instead of business.
As it has to be driven by the developers. It's like,
still a business like any other business. A developer is just as an engineer, it's the maker of the thing, but it still requires, you have to sell it, market it, and you have to have a great business model that's attractive to the customer and still makes you money and everybody's happy. And so far, it hasn't always been attractive cost to the customer when they do their cost benefit analysis. They keep having people tell them, oh, you better do this or you'll be left behind. And so I think it's on us to drill in and spend some time helping find new and inventive ways to make it easier for customers and cheaper for them to acquire this technology so they can get these benefits, because we care about you.
We do.
Our
in
audience.
2022.
Exactly. That's our commitment.
Rappers now.
That is our commitment to our audience for IoT Coffee Talk in 2022, is we are here to help find a way to make this real for you guys and economical, and we're all about that. We are your advocates.
Always. And I think it has something to do with plumbers and overalls.
Yes. But I had to bring in the garbage trucks because kids like to watch videos of garbage trucks, and it's a good example for as a service.
Yeah, it's actually symbolic of the ultimate IoT sensor platform for smart cities.
What did we see happen over the years on city buses? All of a sudden, you see ads on the side of city buses. In fact, you see ads everywhere.
Oh wow! Yeah. So
to offset the cost of providing that service,
ad
right?
Placement. Yeah, there you go.
Look at every football and baseball stadium. There's naming rights, right? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and so you're gonna have you're right. So we're gonna have like all these real estate folks putting their ads on the side of garbage trucks.
These IoT sensors in your farm are sponsored by the Seattle Seahawks.
By Keller Realty.
Yeah.
Your next home could be out in the middle of a field.
So we have to come up with ideas that make sense, and then it has to make sense to like the realtor or whoever, because we have to pitch them. Why would they care? Why would they want to help offset the costs of these?
There you go. Yeah.
Devices. There's got to be.
Yeah. I mean, as silly as some of this sounds, I mean, I think that those are the types of explorations that need to be made. I think architecting those types of economic models, right?
Yeah.
Microeconomic models is going to be important. I don't know how much energy we put into all this stuff. People talk about, business model innovation, blah, blah, blah. But usually that's, in the application of the IoT stuff. It doesn't necessarily look at internally in how, the business model for making the IoT stuff happen. It doesn't look at it from that perspective, in most instances. Usually people are just brute force trying to sell the technology, and this insight or this automation was brought to you by Farmers Insurance. Oh my gosh.
Think of the early days of the internet. Remember all these websites, they're using link exchange and all kinds of stuff,
So the company that's going to be the killer company for IoT is going to be the DoubleClick of IoT, whatever that's going to look like. It's probably going to be some brokerage exchange of something. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
we're going to figure all this out for our audience.
We will.
And we are going to transform the entire IoT landscape in 2022.
2022. The year of the tiger. Eye of the tiger, man.
Yes.
Maybe that's what I should. Well, no, that's all play.
We'll do it when we kick off the new year for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. That's right. I love it.
Eye of the tiger.
Eye of the tiger.
Got it. That's awesome. Okay. Well, we've been rambling on for quite a bit. To all our IoT Coffee Talk listeners, thank you so much for listening to us for the better part of 2021. I think we've only missed 1 or 2 weeks. That's it.
Yeah, maybe.
Like Rob said, we're here for you guys. We're dedicated to making IoT a thing. And we definitely appreciate you watching us, and hopefully you've gotten some value out of listening to us.
Much love.
Yeah, much love. However you do this, like K-pop, BTS, weird stuff. Is that it?
We are totally down with K-pop, by the way.
Yeah, totally.
In fact, I hate to say this, but I think the only new song on the new Coldplay album that I really like is the collab they did with BTS.
Really?
Yeah.
My Universe, right?
Universe, yeah. It's a good song.
It is. It is.
But props to a aging band that recognizes we need to be connected with young hotness. Right? Do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, it is a great tune.
It is.
I really enjoy it myself. And have you seen the video It's really cool. It's like the ultimate AR VR thing.
It almost felt like the metaverse.
Yeah, metaversey. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Hey, also, one thing I also learned before we wrap up about these farmers, they don't want to farm in the metaverse. and let me make sure, what I really mean by that is there's a whole lot of people who are pitching them, oh, you're never going to leave the house. You're going to VR goggles and you're going to do everything. The reason they're farmers and growers is they want to be out on the land and they want to be out there with, and so when you're pitching this different world that you think is cool, and you're wondering why you're not getting any business, that's why.
Well,
there's a reason. Being a farmer is a calling because it's not an easy life. And so, and so trying to take away being out there, out with the soil and the plants, that's not the answer.
Yeah. I mean, who the hell wants to eat like a meta cucumber or drink a meta beer or a meta steak other than, what's his name? Switch or whatever that dude, the trader guy in the Matrix.
He's like, I don't want to know. I don't care.
I don't care.
Put me back in.
There you go.
How do they know what steak tastes like?
Yeah, no kidding. So, anyways, have a happy new year. Make it safe. Keep healthy. And we will see you in 2022. And many thanks from everyone here at IoTCoffeeTalk.com. Like, share.
Hit that bell.
There you go. All right. Take care, Rob. See you, everyone. Bye.